Looking at the roster trends of the moves you made on Tuesday night. We'll start with the most added players, and a little bit of a surprise with some of the names on this list. As you would expect, some of the running backs that we talked about on Tuesday's waiver wire show are here with Gus Edwards and Michael Carter, and the Panthers guys, seeing them see their percentages increase from a roster percentage. But Marquise Goodwin, the #1 player added in CBSSports.com fantasy leagues. Keith, does that surprise you, knowing that might just be a 1 week scenario of him getting some additional playing time with DK Metcalf banged up?
It doesn't surprise me because I think he was only 1% rostered going into this process, and so he had the most room to grow, and it could be longer than 2 weeks, or 1 week even. So I like him as a #3 wide receiver this week.
#3 wide receiver. Adam, do you have that much faith in Marquise Goodwin, who did score 2 touchdowns from Geno Smith, but we know he tends to disappear more times than help fantasy managers on a week-to-week basis?
I don't have a ton of faith in him. #4 wide receiver, I'd say. I'd start DJ Moore over him. I bet Heath would agree with that. Look, the Giants give up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, but I don't really think they're that good. I think they're paper tigers in that regard. I just expect a lot of Ken Walker in this game. Giants' run defense has been terrible, so not too many pass attempts from Geno Smith.
All right, as Heath alluded to, he had the most room to grow from where he was from a 1% rostered player prior to Tuesday night, heading into where he is right now. The running backs, though, certainly have more intrigue. Michael Carter, Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Foreman, these guys added in a lot of leagues to get their numbers up. Michael Carter up to 81%, and a lot of leagues will run waivers on Wednesday. So Adam, James Robinson practicing on Wednesday for the Jets. That's a good situation for him. What does it mean for Michael Carter in a tough matchup against the Patriots this week?
Well, how tough of a matchup is it? They didn't give up any touchdowns before Week 7, but it's not like they were great against the run. I think it's a fairly tough matchup, let's say below average matchup, but not one I'm necessarily running away from. I think Robinson probably has a fairly limited role in his first game. It will probably grow, especially if he was actually injured in Week 7, which of course is a question mark, but it will probably grow as the season goes on. So I like Carter. I'd start him over Gus Edwards in half or full PPR. I'd start Edwards in non-PPR this week. I like Carter as a low-end #2 running back against the Patriots.
Heath, in terms of the Panthers running backs, Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Foreman, we're waiting to find out the status of Hubbard for practice on Wednesday. Did injure his ankle in the win against the Buccaneers. So let's just assume both guys are healthy. Hubbard, Foreman, taking on the Falcons this week. Who do you like better, and how much can you trust maybe both of them?
And this has not been as good a matchup as I thought it was. The Falcons have actually had some success against running backs. I would view both as flexes, very close to each other in the rankings. I would prefer Hubbard over Foreman, but they're both between running back 25 and 29, so it's like really, really tight.
Not a slam dunk, but you should have both these guys on your team. Again, if you're running waivers on Wednesday, we'll tell you that Hubbard probably has a little bit higher ceiling moving forward, even though Foreman came off the big game against the Bucs because of how that game unfolded. We don't expect the Panthers to be playing with the lead very often, although as you alluded to, if the Bucs lose Thursday and the Panthers win, they'll be in first place in the NFC South, which is just absolutely amazing. But in any event, Hubbard probably going to have a little bit better game script for him, so that's why we like him a little bit better than Foreman moving forward. Daniel Jones has an opportunity to help fantasy managers, and I love this stat when I saw it. So Adam, we saw the situation for Daniel Jones coming off another big game where he ran the ball last week against the Jaguars. He now has 68 or more rushing yards in 3 of his last 5 games. The Seahawks allow the most rushing production to quarterbacks. When you factor in Taysom Hill, they give up the most production to that position on the ground. Over 230 yards on the ground to quarterbacks and 5 rushing touchdowns. Can Daniel Jones, with or without Wan'Dale Robinson, have a big game this week against Seattle?
Yeah, they also gave up 100 yards to Kyler Murray rushing. He could have a big game, but it would really have to be through rushing, and that's all he does, basically. He barely throws touchdown passes. He's been over 200 passing yards twice in 7 games. I can't predict that he's going to rush for 60 yards again, but he is 3rd among quarterbacks in rushing yards. So that is it. It is entirely about rushing. It doesn't really matter who his wide receivers are. One thing that people probably aren't going to talk about, but they should, Seattle's pass rush is improving. They've been top 16 in pressure rate 3 straight weeks, and the Giants are going to be without 2 starting offensive linemen in this game. So I am not very bullish on Daniel Jones, but if he is good, it will be because he runs for his life.
All right, so you see Dave a little pessimistic on Daniel Jones. Heath and I like him as a low-end starter. Sportsline does as well. Let's show you the most dropped players here on fantasy football today from the CBSSports.com leagues. No surprise, unfortunately, Breece Hall leading the list after he is out for the season with the ACL tear. Matt Ryan also being dropped after he has been benched for Sam Ehlinger. Daniel Bellinger out for a significant period of time with the surgery on his eye following that injury, and some of the defenses and kickers being dropped here. But at the end of the list, you see 2 wide receivers being dropped, and I don't know if that's going to be a mistake or not long term. So, Heath, we said that Allen Lazard was in a sling following the Week 7 loss against the Commanders. If he is out, and we know it's going to be a tough matchup against the Bills, but Romeo Doubs may see a lot of targets. Sammy Watkins might as well. Is there any reason to hold on to Doubs at this point?
I would rather hold on to Doubs than I would Pierce. Now, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to let Doubs play this week, but if he does, I would think he would be the best Packers wide receiver and would have a chance to be a number 3 wide receiver right in that Marquise Goodwin range.
Adam, Pete Prisco was on the show with us earlier, and he said that Alec Pierce will be the one benefiting from Sam Ehlinger starting at quarterback because of the runaround ability, as Pete liked to say. He's a runaround guy. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell make sense of the trio of wide receivers there for the Colts.
I don't think anyone's benefiting from Sam Ehlinger being the starting quarterback. I just expect them to have a really bad passing game and a terrible offense with one of the worst offensive lines in football. So I am fine dropping Alec Pierce. I might take a shot on Pierce over Marquise Goodwin this week. I certainly would start Romeo Doubs over Goodwin if Allen Lazard were out. But yeah, I'm not picking up Paris Campbell. I'm hands off. Obviously, Pittman, I think you still start him until you see bad production. Let's just assume he's still a must-start guy, but I'm hands-off in terms of Pierce and Campbell.
All right, makes a lot of sense, and hopefully those guys continue to produce. Pierce prior to last week, 4 straight games with 12 or more PPR points. Campbell the last 2 weeks, double digits in targets both weeks, scored in both weeks, but again, the quarterback change could be a bad thing for Matt Ryan not being there and Sam Ehlinger stepping in his place. Most traded players that we're looking at here, and a lot of trades should be happening. Again, check out Dave Richards' trade chart on CBSSports.com to get some of the point values and how you can help make some trades to improve your fantasy rosters. Every week, Ezekiel Elliott is number 1. I don't get it. Why are we selling him? Why are we buying him? Just keep Ezekiel Elliott on your team if you have him. Najee Harris, number 2. You go down there to number 4, though, at Brian Robinson, Heath. And is this a sell-high opportunity, knowing that he's had back-to-back games with 17 or more carries, 100 total yards last week, touchdown the week before? Would you be selling him if you're a Brian Robinson fantasy manager, especially in PPR?
If someone views him as a number 2 running back, as a guy that you're just going to be able to start rest of the season, I would 100% sell him. I do think I would prefer to have Michael Carter. I would definitely prefer to have Gus Edwards rest of the season. And I'd probably prefer the Panthers running backs as well.
Yeah, it should be an interesting situation there for him in this game, in a game that they could be playing with a lead again, and we'll see if Robinson continues to get 17-plus carries. We're playing Meet the Robinsons here. The next guy we're talking about is James Robinson, and is among the most traded players. So, Adam, when you look at this again, Michael Carter most added, James Robinson traded from the Jaguars to the Jets in a real-life trade. Is the time to buy James Robinson with the hope that he could be a version of Breece Hall from a production standpoint?
No, I don't really want much to do with Robinson. I don't want to drop him necessarily. I want to see how this plays out. I could be wrong about him, but let's just think about the big picture here. He basically lost his job to Travis Etienne. He hasn't run well this year. We don't really have a track record of running backs coming back from Achilles injuries, but so far it doesn't look very good. So he's out there. I don't know if he's healthy. He was held back in week 7 because of an injury, supposedly. So I don't think there's a lot going on here, a lot of good things going on for him here, except that he's going to probably have a role with the Jets that he didn't have with the Jaguars. But he's probably the number 2 guy behind Carter. I am definitely not buying James Robinson.
Okay, understandably so. We have to see it to believe it, and we'll see how things go. I think really the situation in week 7 was more, we're trading him. We don't know where we're trading him, but we're trading him. We're just going to not play him to avoid him getting hurt. So I don't think there was a really serious injury that would have to keep an eye on, but that's just me speculating. Nothing official has been said.